hopeful, regardless of the outcome. Boost the positive energy without one. Sorry about the jab, I'm on a holy field. I'm bearing fruit, but demons try to eat them like Yoshi meals. I pissed them off the Batman like Falcone deals. Jungle full of predators, I know how Mowgli feels. So I got the fire, refuse to live in fear. I can spot suppliers, eating fresh shrubs. Call me private.
Oh yeah, welcome to the bonus episode of the Permaculture Pimpcast, where PIMP stands for permaculture is my passion. The only Pimpcast on planet Earth where we discuss permaculture, preparedness, and practical living. Now, folks, ordinarily I would go through and talk about all my sponsors and advertisers and stuff like that. Look, I'm not going to do that today, and I'm going to ask everybody that's here in the live chat to right off the bat, please hit the thumbs up, because the information you're going to hear right now, it needs to go far and wide and everywhere. And like I said, my advertisers, you guys are just going to have to forgive me because I don't have a whole lot of time with my next guest, because he is going at 1,000 miles an hour. I mean it. And folks, if you have any questions in the chat, please, by all means, put it in capital letters so I can see it. And in lieu of tipping a pimp, which stands for permaculture is my passion, in lieu of that, I'm going to ask you guys to break bread in a very different way, because this is one of the most selfless people I know. And without a doubt, I mean, he is. And folks, if you're thinking I don't put my money where my mouth is, well, you can go ask my wife, who we write checks to every single month for Caleb House, because that's part of where we send our tithe. I'm going to ask you folks, listen to what he's going to say, and because he's probably going to drop a couple of tactical nukes of information in this conversation. Without further ado, we're going to talk to my man, my friend, Bear from the internet, from Bear Independent. How you doing, brother?
Shalom, brother. I'm good. I'm exhausted, but I'm good. Thank you for having me.
No, thanks for being here, bro. I told Bear before we even started, y'all. Bear's about a decade younger than me, but he looks about a decade older than me, and there's a reason for it. Because, like I said, he'll never. I'm going to tell you stuff about him that he's probably going to never tell you. And like I said, this is without a doubt one of the most selfless human beings I know, and it is an extreme honor to know him and the influence he's had in my life. And the influence, I mean, I'm almost getting choked up right now, y'all. I'm gonna try not to get all choked up, because honestly, the influence he's had on my son is extraordinary. And Bear, just right off the bat, bro, how you doing? How's everything holding up with you?
Good. Yeah, I'm blessed that I get to live life at 1,000 miles an hour. I think it's good for men to go do meaningful things, to work with their hands, to have a positive influence on the world. And not only do I think it's good for us, I think it's required of us, especially as believers. You know, we're commanded to let your light shine. You know, we were just studying yesterday, Matthew 5. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. You are a city on a hill. You know, what's salt for? It's for the preservation of life. It's antimicrobial, right? It's antibacterial. It's how you make covenants, right? It's required when you bring an offering. That's you, right? And you are the light of the world. And of course, you can read in John chapter 9, Messiah says, I am the light of the world. Well, if he's the light of the world and you're the light of the world, how exactly does that work? It's the two of y'all in unison, going out there, you as man created in the image of the Father, and Messiah, the Father made flesh, operating in righteousness here on this earth to go love your neighbor as yourself. And that is missing from mankind in a large degree. And I think you could see that with men these days, wandering around aimlessly, you know, addicted to their smartphones, and, you know, limp-wristed and bent spines, and they're missing the purpose of life. The purpose of life is to spend your life in a worthy cause, because none of us get out of here alive anyway. And I'm blessed that I get to do that. And that's why I look 20 years older than the last time you saw me, because we deployed Grindstone Ministries for the 46th time to your neck of the woods, Eastern Tennessee, Western North Carolina, with the expectation that, it's a hurricane. We do hurricanes, no big deal. Bring me skid steers and track hose and chainsaws and bottled water and food, and we'll handle this. That was the easy part. It has been unlike any other deployment we've ever been on, absolutely unprecedented, Number one, because a hurricane in Appalachia is unexpected, right? The topography was already challenging. The communities we're serving were already isolated intentionally. They wanted to be isolated. They wanted to live up on the side of the mountain away from everybody else, and I get that. And that's fine. That's fine until you can't get up the mountain anymore, until the power turns off. So it's a huge logistical challenge. And then number two, this is the only disaster I've ever worked, and I've been doing this since Hurricane Katrina. It's the only one I've ever worked that the federal government is actively working against recovery. And that's exactly what I mean. Typically, we accomplish recovery, and by we, I mean the American people, accomplish recovery in spite of the government. The government never helps. They've never helped. They're never going to help. That's not their job. Their job, whether we admit it or not, is to extract capital from the people to the best of their ability. And they do that. This one, completely different. They're actively working against the recovery process, which tells me they've got something to hide. And I believe that they do have something to hide, because we're already getting reports, firsthand reports of cadaver dogs that are dying, that we're walking through these areas, especially in your neck of the woods, walking through the silt, walking through the muck, even going through decon afterwards, being decontaminated. I've got reports. One guy had 10 dogs there, and 4 of his dogs are already dead, and the other 6 are dying, in the process of dying. We've got another woman, firsthand account, that was rescuing horses, was leading horses through the muck and the mud and the river, and the horses are so incredibly sick that they started doing blood tests on the horses. And the tests that have been coming back are, in their words, literally off the charts. They've never seen anything like this before. Then you've got citizens. The last report I got in your area was 50 to 60 people in Western North Carolina that are already inexplicably sick. And by inexplicably, I mean they don't know what's wrong with them. And the reason for that is all kinds of shit has washed into that river. Literal human feces from septic tanks that were ruptured, wastewater treatment plants, thousands of cadavers, even though the official reporting is that it's only 213 dead. Well, that conflicts with one coroner that I personally spoke with that had 1,200 people in reefer trailers, and another EMT that told me he was stacking body bags in the back of ambulances like cordwood. Okay, so the official number is 213, but there's thousands of corpses in the rivers and underneath 20 to 30 foot of mud in some areas, which is why the cadaver dogs are hitting on entire valleys, not just a spot or two. The entire valley is filled with bodies. Then you've got dead animals. Then you've got wastewater treatment plants, septic tanks. You've got NFS, nuclear fuel services, that lost, the official reporting is they lost training barrels. Right, training barrels, 55-gallon drums that they use for training purposes, even though, part of what we do on the Caleb House side is very intelligence driven. And so some of my Caleb House guys came out for this Grindstone operation because we needed intelligence. Well, we spoke to the former training manager at NFS who said, nope, those aren't training barrels, those are live barrels.
Wow.
And officially the number was, it's just 1 live barrel. Then it was 5 live barrels. Then it was a semi-load, 250 55-gallon drums. And we know because the semi was found and documented under 10 foot of mud. So you've got nuclear fuel or waste fuels. You also have the facility at NFS. They said they lost a pole barn in the flooding. They didn't. They lost a 10,000 square foot decontamination unit and all the contaminated parts and all the decontamination equipment washed into the river. Then you've got a PVC plant. You've got multiple concrete plants, all of which washed into the river. And part of the problem here is that there are hundreds of homes that should be condemned. And I'm not for the government condemning people's homes. But these people do not need to be mucking out their homes. They don't need to be pulling out the insulation and the drywall down to bare studs and airing it out and starting over again, because the silt is deadly. The silt will kill you. And FEMA has been slow rolling this, and in conjunction with local and state emergency management has been slow rolling the announcement that, hey, the silt will kill you. because they want to cover up what will likely be a massive conglomeration of giant lawsuits, class action lawsuits against these people. They're also, FEMA is quietly trying to reclassify the 100-year floodplain based upon this so that people can't rebuild in these areas in the future. And on the one hand, it's their property. Let them do what they want. On the other hand, the silt will kill you. And these homes should have been condemned immediately. They should have been bulldozed immediately so that people weren't rebuilding their homes that are literally toxic, only to have them bulldozed a week later by FEMA. And so the whole thing is just a freaking mess. And it makes me think permaculture is my passion. That's what you do. I don't know agriculturally what the methodology is to fix what happened here. But typically, a river overrunning its banks and depositing all that silt would be a good thing. That's what we would want. All those nutrients being brought up from the river, all that decomp that took place in the river, all that being deposited on the banks of the river because we have all that fertilizer now. Well, the problem is all of that's toxic. And I don't know the methodology for fixing all of that, but I do feel like because of what's underneath the ground in Western Tennessee and Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, that whole region, the geologic feature of that region, there's a strong case to be made that the cleanup operation that will be undertaken by the federal government will be akin to a strip mining operation to allow access to the minerals that are underground. And if they can seize all of that land under the guise of, you can't live here anymore because it's toxic and we got to clean it up, bring in the bulldozers, scrape it all up into piles. Hey, a lithium seam, sputamine seams, the graphene, the high silica quartz, all that stuff, it's all of a sudden it's available. And these mines that were going to be spun up anyway in North Carolina's efforts to lean into the Green New Deal and renewable energy in light of the fact that the United States has lost its access to those types of minerals in Afghanistan due to the Biden administration's Afghan drawdown. And we've lost access to those types of minerals out of Africa due to BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, etc. Okay, well, did they make the disaster happen or did they let it happen? I don't know. I'm just a dude from Oklahoma. But as a result, I can see things lining up in such a way that never let a crisis go to waste. Sure, they'll come in and clean it up, and the cleanup will actually be a strip mining operation. And so I'd be curious from you if you have any thoughts on what do you do to remediate something like this from a permaculture standpoint? Do we plant trillions of hemp plants and just let them suck the stuff up out of the ground?
Bear, we're on it right now. It's funny you ask. Before we get into that, before I respond to that, folks, look, we got a lot of folks in the chat right now. Hit that thumbs up. Tell everybody about this right now. Everybody needs to hear this. But before we move on, the Bible says, let your light so shine before men that they see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Folks, this is a guy doing some extraordinary things. He's never going to tell you about it, never, and certainly not going to tell you the full extent of it. Before we move on, Bear, I want you to tell everybody, where can everybody go? So far, look, we've raised over $300,000 for some local things, but folks, I really need y'all to break bread for my man right here. And look, I'm doing it. I have been doing it, and I'm going to keep on doing it. Before we move on, Bear, tell everybody how they can support you, because folks, he's not getting money from the federal government. They're not, everything they're doing, everything his team is doing, everything these folks are doing, they're funding it themselves, and they need your help. He's never going to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you. So, Bear, before we move on, go ahead. Tell everybody how they can support you.
So you can, and thank you. I appreciate you, brother. You can find us at grindstoneministries.com. We are a nationally registered 501c3. We have the same authority as the American Red Cross, except unlike the American Red Cross, we're not 88% top heavy on salaries. I have one full-time executive director and 2 part-time staff at Grindstone that maintain our ability to be ready when something like this happens, that we can deploy across the country. We don't bill homeowners. We don't bill the local municipalities. We don't bill the state. We don't bill FEMA. And as a result, nobody gets to tell us what to do because I don't receive money from any of those people. And that's very specific because I don't want to be under anybody's thumb. We work with property owners at their permission on their property. Now, in the case of Hurricane Helene, we're authorized by the governor of the state of Tennessee to be there and do what we're doing, which is good. That gives us some top cover for what we're doing. In fact, our executive director is meeting with the governor of Tennessee today, and then they will be touring one area, Little Germany, where we have been working, a community that's been cut off, was 70 homes and is now down to 40 people total. It was 42, but 2 of those people committed suicide because they didn't want to play anymore, because that neighborhood, that community has been intentionally cut off by the local government. Why? Because there's lithium underneath of the mountain they live on. But I digress. So you can find us at grindstoneministries.com. If you want to serve, email serve@grindstoneministries.com. And again, it's tax advantaged charitable donation. We are a registered 501c3, and this is our 46th deployment in 5.5 years. So we're out here doing stuff, unlike a lot of other people that are just making cute posts for Instagram. We're 3 weeks boots on the ground at this point.
Okay, Bear, to your point, and I got a whole series of other questions that I know a number of other people out there do as well. To your point, is there a permaculture solution to this? Absolutely. We're already working on it. I got a team going right now. William is on his way back out from Texas. I guess he had to go home and stop for a conjugal visit and visit the whatever the case may be. But he's on the first thing smoking to head back to your AO. And on the way, he's got, I guess, one of your Geiger counters. He's going to stop by the river, hopefully, if he's able to do it where I am, and we're going to get some better readings because, as you said, I'm working on a site where we've had 50 to 60 people hospitalized. We've had 2 dogs dead that we know of. A lady lost half of her goat flock, all because they were down in that silt. Now, is there a permaculture solution? Absolutely. Historically, a lot of folks, somebody wrote in here, an American Chernobyl, and I got it on the screen. Well, here's a story about a lot of what happened in Chernobyl that people don't know about. The one place from that time until this day, the one place in Chernobyl that was unaffected by any of the irradiation that happened there, believe it or not, it was actually the place where they but basically advanced windrow composting. So we know that biology will eat up all this stuff. Specifically, we know you got nematodes, protozoa, fungi, bacteria, all these things, this soil food web. And if we put it in the right proportions, we know that there is not a single toxin on this earth that we know of, including radiation, that cannot be bioremediated. So I've got a team right now, one of the world's best experts in this, and I'm putting together like a dream team of all these different people that can help bioremediate this stuff. And yes, part of it could very well be hemp, because one of the beauties about hemp is that it will suck all of the toxins out of there. But there's a whole host of other things that we're going to plant, hopefully alongside the riverbank. And here's the best part. I ain't asking permission. We're going to go out there and do it. I know some people are going to come down on us like Thor's hammer, but I'm not caring. Jimmy cracked corn and I don't care. I'm not asking permission. All I know, today I'm scheduled, or we're working it out. There's one of these communities that's right alongside the river that's downstream of all the said toxins you were just discussing a moment ago. Kids have been out there. These communities are right on the river. They have children, and they're out there doing this stuff. We're trying to find Bear's gone. One of Bear's guys that he hooked me up with is one of the people that's going to be helping us bioremediate this stuff. But folks, here's why I teach composting so much, is because if there's anybody in Western North Carolina that makes better compost, biocomplete compost than us, I don't know who that is. So we're going to take our compost, we're going to combine it with all of these other, these hippie mushroom farmers that work around here. We're going to take that, we're going to put down cover crops, we're going to use teas, extracts. We are bringing every dog to the hunt, but the one big area where we're struggling right now, and this is from Bear's expert, I'm not sure he wants to be named right now, the guy that you sent me to, I couldn't believe that me and this guy are speaking the same language, and he's working on bioremediations in Hawaii. And of course, if you go through the government, they're going to give you all kinds of this and that and this. Well, guess what? We're going to take a test plot. It's probably going to be in Marshall, North Carolina. Ain't asking for permission, and we're just going to do it. And then once we have an example of what can be done using what God put on this planet, We're not talking about chemicals or anything. We're talking about using nature. Like I said, bacteria, fungi, nematodes, protozoa, the entire food web. We're going to go out there and we're going to remediate this stuff, and we're going to get people better. We're going to even, as best we can, to try to remediate what's going on in that river. But yes, the one place in Chernobyl that nobody ever wants to talk about, the one place to this day, they cannot even get a Geiger counter to go off. And the name escapes me right now, but it's a farm where they do windrow composting. So to this day, that place is unaffected. And so we're going to take those same methods that were done all the way back then, that frankly were being done accidentally, and we're going to apply those same methods here. Now, there's going to be some hurdles I need to jump, because the operation that I have, I'm going to have to scale up considerably. I'm going to need a new location around here. I'm going to see if I can't promote or get a local college to work with me. We're going to get this done, and we're going to make it happen. So all of these polecats that think they're going to come in here and roll over these farmers and say, oh, we just turned this into a Superfund site, we can't do anything about it. Well, guess what? You got another thing coming, nephew, because we're going to come out guns a-blazing, and we're going to do everything we can, and we're going to provide before and after test results. But folks, if you don't think this country's corrupt right now, you could find the bones of bin Laden easier than you can a lab that will honestly test your stuff. If they know where it's coming from and the government's already got their hooks in, I've reached out to Dane Wigington. He's hooked me up with a place. There's been a couple of other places that have hooked me up, and some of the people that would have ordinarily jumped in and said, hey, I'll test your samples. All of a sudden, these people have acquiesced. So there's some weird stuff going on, but I don't care. Whether I got test results or not, we're going to remediate it, and it's going to happen. So back to you, Bear.
First of all, how awesome is the Father that, I met you, 2-3 years ago? And I just knew, right? Your soul knows. I was like, oh, that's my brother. I don't know what we're going to do together, but I know I got to know him. And every time I've ever run into you, Billy, no matter where it is in the country, I'm like drawn to you like a moth to a flame.
Same here, bro.
And now we know part of why, right? Now it begins to make sense. And so praise the Most High for his ability to network like-minded people together. And that's really important for the listener out there who maybe thinks they're just going to traipse through life on a solo mission. It's not that. You cannot, where 2 or more are gathered in my name, there I am in their midst, right? And 5 of you will put 1,000 to flight. There's something about us being together to serve that is way more powerful than a singleton trying to serve. And so I'm very thankful for that, because your abilities and your knowledge and understanding are a key part of remediating what is happening here. And again, we're 3 weeks after the initial stimulus, right? The stimulus response. We're 3 weeks in, and you're already developing plans on how to remediate this thing, when there's a Grindstone crew in Pensacola, North Carolina, at a place called Camp Miller right now, that is still cutting in driveways and access to people, right? That the government hasn't even talked to and probably won't. And the private sector is already, in spite of the government, developing ways to remediate the problem. That's amazing. And that's not coincidence. That's divinely inspired. And to that point, I don't care what the government thinks is going to happen here or not. Nobody cares what the government thinks is going to happen here or not. The 82nd Airborne, the 101st Airborne, the Army National Guard, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, as part of Department of Homeland Security, with at a minimum Border Patrol TAC force out there providing security, all of which we documented, ran home because of the perceived threat of militia activity in 3 counties in western North Carolina. Okay, now, 1 platoon of 82nd, if they're doing what they're built to do, if they're doing infantry stuff, will wreck 250 to 500 militiamen. But they either, and I don't know this, but they either decided, nah, we're not going to play those games against American citizens, regardless of the revision on use of force that came out September 24th. Regardless of that use of force revision, they either decided, no, we're not going to use force on American civilians, or they decided that the cost-benefit analysis, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. One or the other. Either way, they went home. And the relief is being accomplished, again, in spite of the government, not because of the government. So whatever bureaucrat anywhere, at any level of government, thinks they're going to tell people in Appalachia or anywhere else what they're going to do, that's complete and utter horseshit. And it's not been my experience on the ground. So
Fair.
Again, brother, send it.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I didn't. Go ahead. Finish your thought, bro.
I was just going to say, again, relief is being accomplished in spite of the government, not because of it. And regardless of how they are trying to work against the citizenry in Eastern Tennessee and Western North Carolina, the citizens are still the ones getting things done. And I think this is actually contributing to a national level awakening of the government doesn't have as much force and authority and influence as people think that it does. And when they show up to, air quote, do their job, all they do is get in the way. And I think we've known this intellectually, but people are starting to observe it and witness it and understand it at a heart level of like, they're part of the problem. We need fewer of these people, and we need to do a better job of enabling people and empowering people as close to the problem as possible, aka the citizenry and the private sector, because you, without any federal funding, are already working on how to remediate this problem. Me, without any federal funding, is already figuring out the logistics of being Amazon for hill people. We're like, that's what we're doing. We're running supplies to people. I'm like, what do you need, Miss Jones? I'll see you in 24 hours. Whether that's a helicopter or a mule team or guys with rucksacks or side-by-sides or dirt bikes or 4x4 pickup trucks or Penske trucks, whatever we can use to remediate the problem, we're already doing it in spite of the government, crowdfunded by YouTube and Instagram and Facebook of normal people who got $5, $10, $20.
Uh-oh. Looks like we lost my man. I guess, yeah, we'll see what happens here, folks. Sure is fun. Oh, are we back, Bear?
I got you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you cut off for a minute there. I was about to monologue, bro.
Send it.
I lost you when, okay. You know what? Let me just kind of change. Let me change over a little bit, because you brought up something that hit near and dear to my heart. First of all, to Bear's point, folks, each and every one of you better wake up and smell the corruption, or you're going to fall asleep drinking the hemlock. You dig what I'm saying? Because right now we have got a government that's out of control. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that, and that is not the solution. But please donate to Grindstone Ministries. Bear, to your point, back in '92, I was in the 82nd Airborne Alpha Company 307th Engineer Battalion. When Hurricane Andrew walked through Florida and made it look like Godzilla walked all over it, they had us on the first thing smoking right off the bat. Down there was Charlie Company that went all the way down there to go get that thing squared away immediately. And all it took was a little signature. What was it? 94. My wife was over there in Haiti. She ended up getting, the guys made fun of me because she ended up getting deployed to Haiti in that one. What was it? 95. There I was working as a smoke jumper in Mendocino, California on behalf of the Army. And I was telling Dame Wigington about this. How is it the Army could mobilize just like that? In fact, the motto of the 82nd is all the way. But a lesser known motto is anywhere in the world in 18 hours. Will you tell me how 80 Deuce wasn't on the loose until, 200 hours into this thing? And then when they showed up, what was it? They barely hit the ground, and then they were like, okay, we can only do, I'm not blaming this. Hey, folks, don't get me messed up here. I'm not blaming the Joe on the ground. I'm blaming the guys out there who are basically writing the orders. And I'm guessing from what I've heard, they had very, very limited scope, when I know for a fact, when they had us out there doing this stuff, bro, we were the ones doing debris removal, chainsaws, you name it. I mean, bucket trucks, you name it, all of it. You name what was needed for hurricane relief, and we were there. But how is it 200 hours later, and that's my estimation, that they still weren't even on the ground? I mean, from your estimate, Bear, what was the 82nd and 101st actually doing out there? And once again, I'm not blaming Joe.
So observed actions, they were doing welfare checks, going door to door, knocking on people's doors, making sure, hey, are you still breathing? What do you need? That's what we observed. And then there was also rumored that they were doing muck outs. And so going into houses that had flooded or had silt deposited in them and cleaning them out. Now, I did not personally see that, but I got a lot of reports of that happening. To that point, I think that there's, again, I don't know. So rumors and suspicion here on my part. I think part of why they may have pulled out is because we know the silt is making people sick. And I think that it's very plausible to say, due to militia activity in this area, we can't ensure the safety of our soldiers. So we're pulling them out, and that's actually cover for the silt is making people sick. We're not going to continue to put our people in the silt. A, they don't want that paper trail. B, they don't want that cost associated with getting these guys sick. And somewhere down on the list is they don't want the loss of human life, the injury, the sickness. So I think that might be going on there as well. And then the Army National Guard, the commander of the Army National Guard in theater there, got into a pissing contest with the top FEMA guy on the ground because the Army National Guard was doing a lot of the dirty work for FEMA with their engineering corps as far as bulldozing literal towns. And they had a falling out and basically said, nah, we're not interested. We're not playing anymore. We're standing down. And so all of the entire debris plan for the region was to be facilitated by the Army National Guard. But they had a falling out with FEMA. And that's significant for a couple of reasons. FEMA is a civilian agency under the Department of Homeland Security. Army National Guard, not so much. So at the top level, somebody somewhere was like, we'll call in the National Guard, we'll make this thing happen. But they decided not to play with FEMA anymore. But then also, debris management is really, really important. If there's nobody to scoop it up, load it into trucks, and haul it off, it's just going to stay in situ. We not one time, Grindstone not one time, has seen, again, we're 3 weeks into this, has seen an actual debris management plan. What are we hauling? Where's it being hauled to? What happens to it after that? Doesn't exist. It's not on paper. It's not been communicated from the top level FEMA on down. There is no debris plan. And that's, again, another unprecedented thing. We typically, Grindstone, if there's not a debris plan in place by hour 72 after the storm, we make one. We go to the local or the state level emergency management and say, hey, this is y'all's first rodeo. It's my 46th. Here's what we suggest you do. Here's how you should accomplish this. Sort the debris. C&D, construction and demolition, goes in one pile. Vegetative debris, aka stuff that used to be trees, goes in another pile. Vehicles go in a third pile. And then what they call whites, aka appliances, because of the freon and the stuff that's in it, they go in a separate pile. So you go 4 separate piles. They go to 4 separate locations. Because if you take FEMA money, if your jurisdiction takes federal money, you end up with federal problems. One of those problems is the Environmental Protection Agency. And I have seen jurisdictions that failed to sort through their debris, haul it all to one location, only to get slapped with hundreds of millions of dollars in EPA fines, which is in of itself another attempt, and in some cases successful, federal land grab. You can't, this area is now polluted because you mixed refrigerators with construction and demolition debris, or you had vehicles in your vegetative debris. That's it. EPA seizing this land. It's our land now. And so all that to say, there's no debris plan other than the Army National Guard was going to handle it. The Army National Guard is not handling it now. And again, it's unprecedented. And I think the reason for that is a large part of what needs to be remediated is the silt. Where do you take the silt? Where are you going to sequester the silt? So, and nobody has answers for that because they don't want to deal with the silt, which is toxic.
Bro, check this out. Speaking of toxic and silt, I'm gonna tell you something that you likely know, but a lot of people out there may not. But I'd like you to address it. Okay. So right after this thing jumped off, let me back up. Let me preface this by saying, folks, what I'm going to say is be controversial, but this audience ought to be used to that by now. You ever notice in Western North Carolina, and it probably happens everywhere else too, whenever you see somebody working by on an interstate and they're like right up on the edge, they're running a weed eater and they're doing that work, you ever notice that they're probably a little bit brown like me? They might be even illegal Mexicans. You ever notice that everybody's spraying that glyphosate, which will give you cancer, up under those power lines? Every single one of them is illegal Mexicans. Ask me how I know. I just chased them off the other day when they thought they were going to come up to Billy's Jungle Palace of Love and spray that crap here. So I went out there, found them, even got video of the tank on the back of the truck with, skull and crossbones, the whole 9 yards, illegal Mexicans. Now, Bear, that leads me to what I'm about to say. Every single place down by the river where there's debris cleanup, I haven't seen this many Mexicans since the last La Bamba movie. Bro, they had them suckers lined up like cordwood alongside that river down by, I can't believe I just said that. Anyway, yeah, political correctness, not in my wheelhouse. Anyway, bro, Michelle and I and a number of others have went down to the river the other day, right next to that plastics plant that had all of their contents thrown into the river. The same plastics plant, by the way, that even NPR reported will not allow reporters on site to go look at their MSDS, which I thought was illegal. So every last one of them, dude, there's women, there's guys out there. I drove through 2 days. It was 2 days ago. And then I drove through probably a week prior to that. Dude, every one of them bought those down there. Not a single one of them wearing a respirator, not anything, bro. And if you go through there, just drive through along the river down by this old coffee shop. And bro, you will have your head, you just feel weird. I don't even know how to describe the feeling, but it's downstream of that plastics plant. There's this weird smell. And they got nothing but these vatos down there, bro. Is it because they can hide their deaths, or why do you think that is?
Those people aren't on the books. Those people don't officially exist. And so there will be no record of those people passing away. There'll be no way to bring lawsuits by these people that don't actually exist. And if anybody within the sound of my voice thinks for a moment that the federal government cares about human life, you're retarded. They don't. They don't care at all. There's a huge cover-up underway here. And of course, they're going to use proxies to accomplish it, part of which are going to be undocumented workers because they're undocumented. They can't sue. They're not going to turn up at the hospitals and have a whole bunch of data, that they can put together an analysis of the data to show that in this particular area, we're seeing all kinds of symptoms and diseases that are unprecedented. And they're going to pay them off the books. They're going to, Alejandro Mayorkas is going to take all this money we already know FEMA has been distributing federal emergency management funds to the southern border to facilitate illegal immigration. Here's part of that playing out. There it is. So I'll tell you something else, shifting gears. That's, I've done a lot of tornadoes, man, a lot of tornadoes. Hurricanes are different than tornadoes. A tornado wrecks everything right here. It looks like a carpet bombing campaign has gone off. It's literally just rubble in a relatively small area, a few square miles. Hurricanes impact, and from a debris standpoint, to a moderate level everywhere. You lay that over the topography of Appalachia, you've got a significant problem, right? So we were up in our helicopter. Shout out to Dusty and Kyle, our Hilo guys. We're up in our helicopter flying over to Banner Elk, North Carolina to go link up with some Sentinel guys over there. Now we're friends with the Sentinel Foundation. And I'm observing the mountaintops as we're flying. Every single mountaintop, every single one of them had tornadic damage on the top of the mountaintop and the southeastern slope. That's not where it should be. It should be on the southwestern slope. and it wasn't. It was on the southeastern slope.
What?
Because on the sun side of a mountain, you're going to get warm air. On the facing away the shaded side of the mountain, you have cool air. And when hot, moist air meets cool air, you get tornadoes. If you look at the rotation of this storm and the time of day that it hit in the evening, right? Well, where is the sun in the evening? It's on the southwestern side of the slope. The southwestern side was fine. But the southeastern side, where there shouldn't have been any hot air, there shouldn't have been any tornado activity there, every single one of them, I counted over 60 with my own eyeballs, had tornadic damage on the southeastern side of the slope. And I'd say probably 65 mountaintops that I personally observed as a result of this unprecedented hurricane, which gets back to, you want to talk about controversial stuff. I've been doing this since Hurricane Katrina. I've observed a lot with my own eyeballs. This is unprecedented for a lot of reasons. I don't think this storm, or at least the effects of this storm, were natural. I think that they were encouraged. And everybody, there's patents out there for weather modification, and I know that it sounds crazy, man. They would never do that. Why would they never do this? They do all kinds of stuff all the time. They don't care about human life. These air quote leadership in this country, they don't serve the God that I serve. They serve themselves. They have never cared about human life. They didn't start all of a sudden now because there was a storm headed towards Appalachia. And if you look at the track of this storm, the way it behaved, that was also literally unprecedented. And so I don't know exactly what happened there, but I can tell from the data on the ground that something very, very strange, very, very odd, exceptionally odd happened there, including the tornado damage, that it was a result of this hurricane that was in Appalachia that should have never been there in the first place. And it's just, everything about this, again, is weird, bro, because we went out there with skid steers and chainsaws and track hose and bottled water to do what we do. And instead, what we found ourselves doing was fighting for territory with the federal government to be able to bring aid to American citizens. That's an indicator, homie. The big they, are actively engaged in area denial. Communities that we were serving with our helos, bringing in food, bringing in med, bringing in water, bringing in heating for these people so that they literally don't die. All of a sudden, that airspace over the top of those communities is now military only. Okay, well, they're going to fly. They're going to go in there with their UH-60s and they'll drop off water. They'll drop off food. Whatever, dude. Cool. One less thing I got to worry about, except they're not doing it. They're doing flyovers, but they're not landing. They're not sling loading. They're not bringing in any resources.
Bro, I haven't seen a single sling load of every single bird I've seen. I'm like, and I said this from the very beginning. I was like, hold on, something stinks to high heaven, bro. I know how this works. Why do they not have anything sling loaded at the bottom of any of these birds? I didn't see one of it. I mean, bro, they're flying right over my house, or at least they were, and not one sling load. Okay, I'll take that back. The only one that had anything slung to the bottom of it were these, when they were restoring power around here, the guy had a giant drill, I guess, that would knock the branches off of trees. And that was like the local, but no military aircraft, not one, had a single sling load on it. You tell me that doesn't stink to high heaven.
I'm telling you, bro. And like, we institutionally are good at that. Oh, the trees are 100 foot tall. Cool. Give me a 200-foot rope. Not a problem. Let's do this thing. Like, it's not a problem. We have so much practice from GWAT doing this. Like, it's not even a thing. Like easy. And so communities that were being supported via unconventional access, because the roads and the bridges are washed out, by nonprofits, by the citizenry, all of a sudden that airspace, now it's military only. Military and state law enforcement. And instead of providing supplies, they're just doing flyovers to say that they're servicing the area while people are literally starving to death and have no water, have no med, right? And so you can make an argument here that there's an infringement upon these people's constitutional and property rights, because the government that they elected, their representative officials, are not actually facilitating their aid or rescue. They're going through the motions to say that, oh yeah, it's military airspace, we're flying through there, but they're not bringing anything. And in certain areas, like, again, Little Germany and Bumpus Cove in eastern Tennessee, there's an active media blackout that's intentional. Commo was intentionally interrupted, documented by my people, intentionally interrupted, so that the people inside of Little Germany couldn't report out, let alone call for help. Access was intentionally restricted. And then, of course, you've got people driving around in black SUVs trying to buy up land, and in some cases actually buying up land in these areas that have flooded. The whole thing stinks, bro. It's at a tactical level. There was a lot of rain in Appalachia, and that had a lot of downstream effects. Operationally, we're talking eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, western South Carolina. It's a large theater, if you will. Strategically, I don't even know what the federal government is actually trying to accomplish here, but the implications stink to high heaven, bro. Like, I don't know. I don't have enough information to say, oh, they are definitively doing this, Billy. This is what they're doing. But it sure as shit looks like a federal land grab.
Bro, I had Dane Wigington on the other day, and as the Lord would have it, I mean, I scheduled him long before. I had him scheduled for my podcast. Oh, shoot, long before this hurricane ever came through. So when it came through, man, I had some really intelligent questions to ask when he got here. And he said, you know, I mean, this is the world's foremost geoengineering expert. And he told me the equivalent of, imagine, folks, all the water that goes over Niagara Falls in 1 year. Multiply that by 2, and that is how much rain fell from the sky in 2 hours. All of the rain that goes over Niagara Falls in 2 years fell in this area in 2 hours. And then, to your point, you know what? I grew up in Oklahoma, and I've been through my share of tornadoes. You know, I was actually there on the May 3rd tornado when they recorded the highest wind speeds. In fact, foolishly, we drove into it thinking we were going underground. That's another story altogether. But you know what, Bear, to your point, this is why I had this eureka moment as you were saying it, because I'm thinking, hold on. In my life, I have never seen a tornado that didn't come from southwest to northeast. I don't ever recall ever seeing a tornado that didn't track that path. And like I said, I grew up in Oklahoma. I've seen many a tornado, and I've seen the aftermath. And you look at that damage path, and it's always southwest to northeast. And this is so freaking bizarre, bro. If you look at Dane's work, and he has a 90-second video that I recommend everybody go to Geoengineering Watch, not right now, but after you're all done here, write it down, Geoengineering Watch on YouTube, or go to geoengineeringwatch.org. Watch this 90-second video that Dane proved, because I'm boots on the ground here, Bear. I'm going to tell you how it went down first. You know, the sky wasn't like it is right now, where it's just crystal blue like it hasn't been since I was a kid. Days before this actual hurricane hit the ground, just like the last one that kind of rolled through here, all of a sudden they're chemtrailing, they're dropping this these atmospheric things, whatever, the day beforehand. And then all of a sudden we had flooding long before that hurricane even got here. So we were already well primed. And then all of a sudden we get 30 inches of rain the following day. Now, remember, folks, as a permaculture designer, I can tell you that when energy hits your property, I'm going to take a little side hike here. Remember, you only got 3 different choices here. And I don't care if it's sun, wind, rain. You can either deflect it, you can capture it for a little while, or you can amplify it. And in the best circumstances, you can do all 3. And that's exactly what we try to do here on the Pimpstead. But that's all that aside, not everybody knows or is able. And because of the topography here, you don't necessarily have the ability to do all that. That being said, we got hit with all this. First of all, chemtrails like nobody's business, rain like nobody's business. And then Dane comes out with this video, lo and behold, where he proves, and just like to Bear's point, where the patents are out there, this isn't even, look, Americans, learn how to say the word conspiracy without then adding theory behind it. Because every time you do that, you make yourself look like a flipping moron, because they came out with it in the 60s to make everybody, to marginalize anybody that asked any critical questions of the Kennedy assassination. So when you go around throwing conspiracy theories, you're doing exactly what the powers that shouldn't be want you to do. But anyway, he says they will drop these, they have particles in them. What they are, I do not know. Anyway, these particles in combination with these radar towers can be used to steer the storm, these nanoparticulates that are now entwined into whatever that storm is, and they can use these next rad radar towers. Well, guess what, y'all? It's right there in plain sight in this 90-second video at Dane's website, where he shows that all of the towers on the west side of this storm, not a single one on the east side of it, all of the ones on the west side of this storm kept this storm aimed exactly where it was. Same thing happened with Hurricane Harvey, and he proved it back then. Folks, this sounds like space age stuff. I know that it does, but we are sufficiently ignorant. I mean, they're 50, maybe 100 years ahead of what you think you know. This is what they call a breakaway civilization, folks. And they're using this stuff. So when you hear Bear talk about this thing's being engineered, we've had this ever since Operation Cirrus. And then in Vietnam, we had Operation Popeye. They were drowning out the Ho Chi Minh Trail. We had this technology forever and a day. So if we had it all the way back in 1968 in Vietnam, what do you think they have right now? Well, people like Dane out there are blowing the whistle, and my man Bear's out here blowing the whistle too. Are there any other weird, crazy anomalies that you can talk about, Bear? We've already gone down this road, bro, and I know we don't only have you for a little while longer, but what other crazy, weird things that are happening here, or are there any other that you could cite that you haven't necessarily seen in other disasters?
Well, again, the tornadoes, right? The flooding is immense. It's immaculate. And I think, personal reflection, I think I'm pretty jaded. I've realized this on this deployment. I was having a hard time empathizing with people who had lost everything. And that's something I personally got to work on. I told somebody, they were looking at a car in the river, and they're like, the damage, bro. And I was like, I've seen a house stacked on top of another house, like a sandwich, with a Peterbilt driven down through the top of both of them, like the toothpick and the club sandwich. And that was one house on one road in Rolling Fork, Mississippi. And the whole rest of the place looked like that too. And they were like, that's insane. I was like, yeah, that was Tuesday, and so I'm trying, brother. I'm trying to be better, because on the one hand,
I get it.
On the one hand, my heart breaks for the people that lost everything. On the other hand, it's almost like I've got to be a good surgeon. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here to do a job. Let me in here. Let me do what I'm good at, and I have to have enough rapport with the patient that you'll let me operate on you. But that's really my job, is to get in here, cut the bad stuff out, and then go home again. But as far as anomalies are concerned, there were a lot of people in the area that had no good reason to be there, like agencies and organizations that I've never observed on any other storm. Again, you brought up the illegals that are working by these rivers. Customs and Border Patrol, why are they there? Why is their TAC team there? Because we documented, observed, photographed, videoed Customs and Border Patrol, SRT, pulling security for FEMA. And FEMA had 30 minivans, each one with 4 to 6 FEMA agents in it, and half of them had dog cages in the back with cadaver dogs. And then when asked, because some of my guys, they've got more balls and sense, walk up and just start filming these guys, and I love them for it. Are you FEMA? No, we're not FEMA. Well, you got FEMA windbreakers on. You got FEMA windbreakers laying in the seat. So either they are FEMA and they're denying that they're FEMA, or they're not FEMA, but they have FEMA credentials to act as if they are FEMA. And so I don't know who those people were. But that's like one of many incidents. There was another in one region of Western North Carolina, a group of civil affairs guys rolling around in multicam uniforms with no name tapes and beards. They certainly didn't look like civil affairs. They looked like a soft unit, and they acted like a soft unit. And civil affairs, the only difference between CIA and CA is the I, right? I don't know what they're doing out there, but why are there civil affairs units running around in Western North Carolina after a hurricane? These are all things, maybe we'll get answers to these as we continue to work our way forward in this thing, but in the moment, doesn't make any sense at all. I've never seen civil affairs deployed after a natural disaster ever. In 19 years of doing this, I've never observed that before. You know, and the FEMA cadaver dogs, again, are hitting on entire valleys because there's 10 to 20 foot of mud with thousands of bodies underneath it in these valleys, where a 30-foot wall of mud from that 2 years of Niagara Falls rainfall is a wall of mud 20 to 30 foot high, come down the mountain and just smashed everything in its path. And I don't love the fact that these areas are being bulldozed over the top of, but I also don't know how one would even begin to remediate that. They're going to be finding bodies from this thing for 1,000 years, probably. And it's not 213 people, the official number who died. I know of one location in Swannanoa, North Carolina, that went through 10 to 12,000 body bags. 10 to 12,000. And so it begs the question, why? Why is this not being reported? And I genuinely think the answer is the people who are at the helm at the federal level, you know, Alejandro Mayorkas and FEMA and Department of Homeland Security, they squandered the funds, the resources that they had to be able to deal with something like this in the first place, to push a political agenda. And we're 3 weeks out from an election. And that should have no bearing whatsoever on the recovery efforts in Appalachia, but unfortunately it does. And that's an indicator of how far this great nation has fallen. And the last thing I'll say to you, because I'm going to have to jump, brother, is we have to do a much better job of differentiating between the beast system of the federal government and the American people. The American people are by and large incredible. The amount of resilience and ingenuity and brotherly love that I have observed in the last 3 weeks in Appalachia is stunning. And I'll tell you this too. Our God is God, and he is incredibly real. And he was meeting needs in the moment as we were praying and asking him for things. Literally in the moment, they were arriving. You know, ask whatever you ask for my glory, and my name shall be given unto you. I was walking with one of my guys through our distro yard in Jonesboro, Tennessee. He comes up to me and he says, "Hey, we just got a call from Fender Farms. They got 100 people. They've got nowhere to sleep." And I was like, "Well, let's set them up. We got tents, we got sleeping bags." He goes, "Yeah, but we need mattresses or cots or something." I was like, "Okay, we'll get it." I'm walking around behind the semi, and there's a 24-foot trailer backing up. Guy come out of Michigan. And I stopped and I talked to him. I said, "Hey, buddy, what do you got?" He said, "I got 104 mattresses." I said, "Don't even unload. Just go straight to Fender's Farm." Boom, in the moment. There's another woman showed up. She was a local. She'd been out by herself for like 7 days. She looked like hell. She looked like she'd been through some shit, right? And one of my guys, Bob, is praying with her. She's like, "I need a generator." And he's like, "I'm sorry, we're out. We sent 22 generators out this morning." And she's just breaking down, sobbing. And Bob's like, "Let's just pray. Please let me pray for you." It says, "Father, you got a daughter here who needs a generator. If you could just bring us a generator, we'd really appreciate it." And as they're finishing praying, this guy comes flying into the yard from Florida in a Tacoma with a generator, 12K generator. He's like, "I got here as quick as I could. I got a generator." And then everybody starts sobbing, right? He's like, "Don't even unload. Bring it to this lady's house." And as we're telling that story to a group of guys Saturday night, most of which were, let's say, maybe not as strong in their faith as they would like to be, we're telling the generator story. And another guy walks in and he says, "Hey, can anybody help me unload? I've got 12 generators. And I looked at the one guy and I said, "Oh, like the apostles?" I looked at another guy. I said, "Oh, like the tribes?" And then everybody just started sobbing. I was like, "Somebody go unload this guy's 12 generators." And so in spite of the federal level neglect that is occurring here, the God that we serve is real and is sovereign, and his people, we have way more power than we think we do. And so we've got to rightly divide between the citizenry of the United States of America and this corrupt government that we have, because our people are by and large amazing. And incredible things happen where 2 or 3 are gathered in his name. And we need to not forget that.
Bear, speaking of sobbing, man, you're going to have me over here crying like Justin Rhodes, bro. This is just, I mean, incredibly moving. Man, not to get all broke back on you, but I love you, brother. And tell everybody.
I love you too, bro.
Hey. Yeah, I'm glad we're not hugging right now, dude. We might create some rumors. Once again, I know you got to get bouncing here, brother. But, tell everybody once again, man. Hey, folks, please spread this far and wide. But most importantly, tell everybody how they can help out my man Bear. Bear, once again, tell everybody where. Look, y'all, tell everybody what you need and how they can support you. And don't be afraid to tell everybody about the monetary needs because, folks, he's not getting help from anybody else. So break bread.
www.grindstoneministries.com. Our op board is up there. Our list of needs is up there. If the Spirit moves you to donate, you can do that through the website, grindstoneministries.com. There are other people pretending to be Grindstone to raise funds, so please don't. Just go straight to the website. Don't give to any other GoFundMe or Give, Send, Go. That's not us. Grindstoneministries.com is where you can find us. And if you want to serve, email serve@grindstoneministries.com. As far as needs, we now need heating and power generation. We cannot get enough buddy heaters, small propane tanks, adapters to large propane tanks themselves, kerosene heaters, kerosene, generators, 30 amp generator plugs so that we can backfeed main panels so that at least people can have some lights and some refrigeration, gasoline, diesel, blankets, sleeping bags, all that stuff. We're now, it's beginning to be winter in Appalachia. There's already been some snow on the ground in some regions around there. It's below freezing in many areas, especially at elevation. And these people are, the power company's saying 4 to 6 months out before power is restored. Some of these areas I've been to, I used to build power construction. I know what it takes. It's going to be a year or more. And so our whole mission, what Grindstone does is the preservation of life. We are a disaster relief ministry, and we are for the preservation of life. And so we've solved the immediate needs of food, water, shelter, medical. Now we're looking at long-term needs of how do we steward these people through what is going to be a very cold and dark winter. And so we need electrification, power generation, and heating significantly. And you can find out details for that. Just go to the website. You can contact us through the website. And if the Spirit convicts you, you can give there. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. No hard feelings. I'm not here to shill for anything.
All right, man. Hey, y'all, I want to thank everybody in the chat, and I want to thank, and please put this out to everybody you know. I want to give a shout out and a hat tip always to my friend Bear. And until next time, y'all, I want to thank you and bless you. And remember, stay alert, stay alive.
They don't want an individual, just a carbon copy. You spitting that manicotti, yeah, I'm talking saucy. All they want to build is a prison world full of pet Tamagotchis. Like a kamikaze, got me out of body like I'm Goku SS3. They want to push me to the center like a cell. They want to spin up at the center of the next is me. They want me to bow down, but I'm a warrior.